We're live, baby. What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Swampcast. I'm here with the man himself, EJ. It's Logan. And man, we got a lot of great stuff to talk about today, EJ. A lot of stuff to dive into, man. A lot of big things happening within the Swampcast universe here that we're gonna get to in an hour, basically. So we got a lot to dive into. EJ, number one, how you been, brother? How's it going over there?
Yo, how's everybody doing? It's been going great. Been going great. We there's a parade going down outside my door. I guess it's like a back to school parade. I guess everybody's going back to school now. That's great. No taxes. Take advantage of that. But other than that, we got a lot of cool stuff to share. We're gonna be building some stuff at Swampcast.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. A lot to dive into there. Man, we're going to be diving into, listen, we have a brand new model, a Swampcast model that we're going to talk about. That's going to give us spreads. That's going to give us deep insight into these teams we're going to be facing. So we're going to dive into the first 6 games, really take a look at the entire schedule for the 2026 season for the Florida Gators, EJ, and everyone watching. But we're really going to dive into these first 6 games, take a look at what it's showing. And then also we're going to be diving into the scrimmage that just happened yesterday, the intel that we got. Not a lot of it. Really, that's going to be tomorrow when they do the press conference with Mr. John Summerall himself, the man of the Florida Gators. And then, of course, we're going to just kind of, like I said, take a look at this model, what the Gators have going on. And we actually have our own top 25 power ranking for all of college football we're going to be diving into. So you might surprise a lot of you guys, but I promise there's good stuff backing this up. I promise. And we're going to get into that, EJ. So, look, we don't got to waste any more time on that. EJ, let's hear it. So, look, I'm putting it on the screen right now. It's called Chomp. Okay, College Handicapping and Outcome Matchup Predictor, baby. This is ours. We built it here at Swampcast. So excited to like I said, dive into this with you guys. EJ, can you just kind of give us an overlook on what this is, what this model presents, what maybe just some of the stats that's also based off of, and how it separates itself from the ESPN FPI and some of these other models that are out there in college football?
Yo, yes. So everybody, how y'all doing out there? So we developed, and it's still in development because there's a lot of data that's not available that we are basing our model on because teams have not played. One of the things that we've learned in making this model is that preseason rankings are bullshit. All right. And they're all highly subjective because when we're actually building our model to compare teams and predict teams in the preseason, given how the transfer portal has really just flipped and inverted rosters, a lot of people are assuming that there's just plug and play, or certain teams are going to benefit in different ways from different transfers, and they're incorporating that into their preseason rankings. But when you actually try to look into what was the actual competition that all of these transfers played against in the previous 2 years, and then say, how can that success be predictive into their new team, into a new environment with a new coach, okay, relative to all the other teams they're going to be playing who are also different? It gets a little chaotic. And so I just say that to say a lot of the preseason rankings are guesses, right? So throwing that out there. So our model actually looks at player performance wherever they've been and has incorporated that in. So if you were successful at one school and then you go to another school and now you're at your third school, that's what our model incorporates. And it looks at 2 seasons. These other power rankings are looking at your performance in just the last season, which is less predictive of how you're actually going to be the next year. So Chomp is actually a matchup predictor tool that Logan's going to show you when we get to that point in the show, that you can plug in any matchup and it's going to tell you who's going to be favored, who's going to win. It's probably very forward thinking because at the end of the day, gone are the days. If you're a Swampcast member, Swampcast subscriber, we got to come up with subscriptions for you guys. You don't have to wait for Vegas to come out with whatever their line is because our data is going to be updated in real time. Well, maybe like every week, so that you'll be able to know who's Swampcast going to predict, like what's their model. Now, Logan and our picks might be different, but the model is going to have a pick, and then we're going to do our picks, and then we're going to compare everybody at the end of the season. The Swamp Power Index just takes into consideration, Swampcast Power Index takes into consideration basically the Chomp method, and just ranks everybody 1 through 138. Okay, so that's the Swampcast Power Index. We'll show you what that looks like. And then the death toll. Sounds kind of scary, but I just watched Masters of the Universe. Skeletor was on there. He likes the death toll. Okay. What that is it's basically we run every prediction 10,000 times. Every simulation. We simulate games 10,000 times, and then the model predicts what is the median projected score of that game, because there's some outliers. There's some where the underdog blows you out. There's some where the favorite team blows you out, more than half the time. And so the median discounts those and says, how's this game really gonna go? And if it's 9,000 blowouts by the favorite, then it'll project I can't even talk, project that way. But if it's not, then it's not going to do that. So it's a really cool interactive model that we're going to give our folks access to. Logan and I got to figure out, like, do we want to have a subscription tier? How you want to do that? We'll figure that out. But you guys will be able to see it live on the show at least.
100%. And what I'm really excited to see is how the model grows over time, right? Because one thing that EJ was talking about, the preseason polls are terrible, and that's why there's a big debate among Josh Pate and some of these other people on why the hell do we even have them? Because what goes into it is, previous year stats, but you have teams like Florida, other SEC schools, other Big Ten schools that are going to be completely different because of new coaches. Look at Auburn. It's like the entire roster is new, right? So how do you even dictate what the team is and who they're going to be, what their identity is going to be? You don't know. And so that's why preseason polls are wild. That's why what we're going to show you today, you might go, what the hell is this? But you got to understand that it's based on metrics that's kind of all we have right now. Now, as we continue to go on, 4-5 games into the season, you're going to see, okay, you're going to really get a better grip on what the top, top 25 power rankings are, the indexes, better, understanding of who teams are, what they're great at, what they're not great at, and how they match and who they match up with, and if it's a good matchup or bad matchup. So I'm really excited, EJ, to see kind of how this index goes. And you can even look at it, I was sitting there and EJ was like, he's like, one thing that we did is we sat here, we looked at the previous few years, right, EJ? And we saw what the preseason was and mapped out our model right now on how efficient it was predicting games and predicting the winners and stuff like that. And you can see by this next slide, pretty damn efficient. I mean, literally out here, 68.2%, and so the problem is, even these indexes that are here, like the ESPNs or whatever it is, they're sitting around, a little above 50, right, EJ? And what's great about this one is it's obviously a lot higher. So we'll see what it looks like. Like I said, we're doing as much as we possibly can with the preseason stats and stuff that we do have. But this is a really cool, system here. There's still some stuff we have to flesh out, but overall, this is kind of a sleeping giant here, I think, EJ, with these stats, and how, like you said, you mentioned a few of them, some of the, statistics that we have that a lot of these other indexes don't even have, and that have been going on for 20 plus years. So it's pretty exciting.
Right. Exactly. And so what Logan said, the reality is we gave our model 2022 through 2024 data, and we didn't even give it 2025. Okay. And then we set it to, hey, predict the winners or predict the preseason for 2025, and then proceed to predict the winners based on the schedules. And you don't even know who's gonna win, okay? Because we blinded it from 2025. And it picked the winner 68% accurate, which is crazy because 52%, I think, is what Vegas predicted.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you like Vegas because you want it to be a little bit better than 50%, right? So we're 68% of the time it's great. We don't really know if that's going to be, it's going to predict. Hey, if it predicts 68% of the winners, we're going to win a lot of money. I can tell you that. But there's still a lot of tweaking we have to do to the model. You know, and by the time the season starts, I think it'll be really, really great. We'll have some actual data to base it on, and it'll be a lot better.
100%. We got Brian in here. What's going on, Brian? How you doing, man? You said coaching, head coach record, returning production, talent profile versus opponents. We should be at least 10-2 based on those metrics. The 10-2 is back, EJ. It's back. Yeah. Well, look, we're gonna dive into what the model says.
Yeah, he ain't gonna like. He ain't gonna like how he ain't gonna like how it's predicted.
We're about to piss Brian off, baby. I love it. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and continue on, man. So, EJ, should we get to this next slide? I think it's the SEC rankings. You wanna look at that first? All right, let's go ahead and dive into that. So the actual now look, there's one team in here. I'm trying to understand why the hell the system likes the team so much, but we have EJ, what, 20 to 30 different metrics, right, in this system. Like, we took time to really dive into all these different analytical points. Florida lands at number 12. Texas, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, Tennessee. Those, I think, make a lot of sense. The bottom makes a lot of sense. The big outlier to me is South Carolina all the way up at 8. Now, South Carolina is bringing in Kendall Briles as the OC, right? This kind of the year make-or-break season for Sellers at quarterback. You got Nick Harbor still. You know, you have that the great edge as well. So, like, this is kind of a make-or-break season for the South Carolina team, and maybe the model kind of took that into account, EJ. But yeah, just overall though, understand, makes sense. LSU also pretty low. But one thing that we talked about, EJ, is this model. I don't know if Brian was here for it. This model takes into account all the transfers and takes into account their every single year that they played in college previous to this season. And so it takes into account all those things. And obviously LSU had a really good transfer portal class. But, you know, no telling what they're kind of taking a look at here. Defense are ranked 22. Obviously, they have a great defensive mind there. Offense are sitting at 42. Obviously, there's a lot of pieces there and some unknown. Brian said, every model will predict us bad. That won't make me mad. It will just be hilarious to watch them all be wrong. And John Summerall does what he always does, which is win. We'll see. I hope so.
Yeah. Hey, we hope.
And you know what's interesting is when we get into the actual schedule prediction a little bit later, you'll see there's a lot of coin flip games. That's something that me and EJ talked about last week, I believe, with you, Brian, is, you know, when you have 6 coin flip games, you're not going to win every single coin flip game. I mean, you know, there might be teams that might go 5-1 in that, maybe 4-2 in that, but you really got to look at a 3-3, right? Coming out of those coin flips, because it is a 50-50. And so it could go Florida's way. It could also go not our way, EJ, and we could be sitting at, you know, 1-5 in those coin flip games and be screwed. So I think that really is based on your team dynamic, though, and obviously the mental state your team is in. So that's kind of the SEC rankings there. EJ, if you have anything to say too, just, you know, cut me off. I'm just kind of going through it.
Yeah, I mean, this was actually, you know, this is like our 4th iteration of the poll, and as the data gets cleaner, it'll get better. Believe it or not, we were as high as number 5 on one of the iterations of the preseason SPI, our Swampcast Power Index, which, you know, I think it's pretty good. But the issue that we have is, you know, kind of like what Brian was saying with, you know, the coaching. So if you actually try to superimpose the coaching onto Florida, the issue is going to be, how much do you weight the data that Summerall has coached against actual Power 5 teams, which there aren't any. and the only times he played, he had a worse team, and he got beat pretty bad. But given the fact that he played within the margins of the talent level, I think gave him a lot of points. So holding that over to Florida, saying, with this talent profile, and you play within the margins, Florida's predictive record should actually be accurate. So last year, when we were projected to win, I think we were projected to win 7 games last year, and we only won 4. What this model is saying, whatever number of wins we're projected to get, we will actually get there. Which, is a little bit better. The other thing is about the talent. So the talent composite for 2026 has not been released yet by 247. And that tells you, it ranks all the talent of all the, that's on all the rosters. So like, for example, Georgia would probably have the number 1 most talented roster based on the number of 4-star players, 4 or 5-star players they have. And they typically go 3 deep with blue chip players, whereas we are lucky to go 2 deep. And so it's interesting. We don't have that. So we had to actually create a patchwork talent composite to give us what that ranking would be. When the season starts and we actually have that, things should sure up. But it's interesting that Georgia's all the way at number 4, even though they technically have the most talented roster. That just must mean, in our model, Texas and Texas A&M's talent based on the transfer portal and their recruiting is really good this past season. They put on a lot of great players that have actual stats against FBS Power 5 teams. So that's why those 2 teams are ranked number 1 and 2. And Ole Miss is getting a lot of points because they have the best quarterback in our model. And you'll learn that we rate, if you've got the best quarterback, your chances to win go up significantly. And Ole Miss, according to our model, has the best quarterback in the nation. So they're going to be highly ranked in all these rankings. Florida, on the other hand, the uncertainty at quarterback is something that is taken away from our rating. And then the defensive line not able to get pressure on the quarterback is what also takes away points from our model. So, I mean, we do have Woods. Maybe he'll play a lot, but it's more hope with him than it is. He's got stats from last year that proved he's a freaking monster that's going to go off on the line of scrimmage and terrorize people. So we think he's going to be good, but our model says, no, you have to prove that you are good for us to give you these points. So that's why those are the 2 reasons why we're inexperienced at quarterback and then the D-line.
Yeah, Brian said not true. He beat Duke and Duke stole his QB and Duke won. Okay. Well, yeah, but he's 2-7, I think, against Power 4 opponents, talking about John Summerall as a head coach his entire tenure from Troy to Tulane. So yeah, he beat Duke and then he beat Northwestern a few years ago as well. But every time he's especially played on the road or anything like that, he's lost. Texas will be overrated again, and Ole Miss, I don't think Texas will be overrated. Ole Miss, I agree. I mean, EJ heard me. I don't know if you guys remember when we were doing the over-under picks. I think Ole Miss is a little overrated. I don't think they're really going to be that great. I totally agree with you 100%, brother. I think that, are they going to be bad? No, but I think they're going to have a step back. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But I agree with everything you said, EJ, 100%. All right, so this is kind of what they have Florida ranked right now based on our model. Offensive, 33rd, which I understand. We don't know who the hell our quarterback's going to be. And then 45th defensively, I think is pretty interesting. I'm curious to see.
I was surprised at that.
I was surprised at that as well because the ESPN FBI has us at 12th, which I think I would lean more toward that than 45th. But once again, the model, it's preseason. We don't know what the fuck. We don't know what's happening. We got a brand new coach and a bunch of brand new guys. You know what I mean? So it's like, what the hell are we doing? He should be 0-7 Tulane. I feel you, man. I feel you. That's right. That's a testament to who John Summerall is. But once again, though, we'll see what he could do. It's very exciting. There's a lot of unknown with the Florida Gators and with John Summerall in this tenure. And that's also why this model probably doesn't know where the hell to put us. Now, let's go ahead. This is the all 13, or, well, all 12 games, but all 13 weeks here for you guys to take a look at. EJ, some of these spreads are pretty interesting here, right? And what's wild is I mean, obviously Campbell doesn't have one, right, because it's a FCS opponent. But it's pretty interesting. You got Florida Atlantic, Campbell, and then what is that? I mean, that's it. That's kind of only the two gimmies here, and the rest are spreads that are pretty damn close. So Florida Atlantic, we're favored by 10.5. Once again, this is all preseason, right? Most likely going to win that game. Campbell, we're going to destroy them, so that's why it's not even there. And then we're really going to dive into these first 6 games. But look at this. We're obviously going to Auburn, so we're the underdog by 2 points there. We're then the underdog to Ole Miss by 5 points. And then the underdog to Missouri, which we go to Missouri, which is underdog of 4 points. And then we go to South Carolina, South Carolina comes to us as we come back home from Missouri, and we're favored to win by about 2 points. So look at all these these are all pretty much all kind of toss-ups here, right? You have Auburn, you have South Carolina, you got toss-ups all last 4 games against Oklahoma, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Florida State. So was that 6? That's 6 toss-up games of the entire. That's half of the games are toss-ups. Pretty interesting. And that's kind of what we were talking about earlier. That's either gonna, bode well for the Florida Gators or bode really, really bad. So, pretty interesting, EJ. What was your thoughts looking at just these, this kind of these games, these spreads?
Yeah, so we built our model without Gator glasses on. And, when I saw these results, I got pissed. You know what I mean? I was like, this can't be right. There's absolutely no way. What the hell is going on? So if you look at these, but then you start diving into it. And like I said, when the talent composite comes out, these numbers will change. Because all the data is based on 50% of your team doing what they did on another team that was playing a completely different brand of football, playing a completely different style of play, playing a completely one guy's on a power run team, now he's on a spread offense when he so all the preseason polls are out of whack, okay? And it's all guessing right now. This is interesting because I did agree with us winning the last 4 games, even though one of them is against Oklahoma. I think if we get some momentum going and John Summerall gets some things going, winning those last 4 games, hey, that's great. I actually think he can do that. But then when you look at, the Florida Atlantic game, why is that game so close? It says it's an 11-point spread, 10-point. So FAU gets a lot of points because they're technically the most experienced team in the country returning, even though their competition was like the 100th strength of schedule and ours was like a top 5 strength of schedule. They got a lot of points because their quarterback is the most experienced quarterback in the country. And they, so that's what it's basing off of. Now, I think we're probably going to beat them by a lot more than that. But think of this. How much did we think we were going to, how much were we favored by against USF last year? We were favored by 18 points against them last year going into into that game. And what happened? They beat us by like 7, right? It was like 18-12 or 18-15. They beat the last second field goal. So, how do you predict something like that?
Right. It's like,
preseason,
it's
like you don't know.
Years. And that's why, because me and EJ were talking, we're like, hey, let's go through game by game and do predictions. And EJ was like, bro, we don't know. And he's right. We don't know what these teams are going to be. And so when you have that kind of upset last year, when you have the struggle of the Billy Napier era, it's like, yeah, the model doesn't really know what to think, right? No matter what model you look at. And that's the thing. Brian's talking about it. Look, one thing we've noticed, this is all numbers. There's no bias being put here. You can't tell me that ESPN, you can't tell me, don't get me wrong. I love Josh Pate. I love all those guys. You can't tell me that they don't throw in a little bit of bias, right? Just because if they did have, and you'll see, in our top 25 ranking, if you have these big name teams a way lower than what, ESPN saying, or what, the I don't know, the main bases are talking about, and what kind of the hype train is saying, then you're going to get hate, and it's not going to look pretty for you. You want good ratings. You want to kind of feed into that a little bit, right? That's going to get you more clicks. It's going to get you more love. And so you also got to understand the business side of it. So we're coming straight from just pure analytics based on previous seasons. And obviously the previous season for the Florida Gators have not been great. So
Yeah,
once again,
that's the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Should we be higher than 10.5? We'll probably win that game by more than 10.5 points for sure. And we probably have a higher than 75% chance of win. But at the same time, we don't know. It's based on previous seasons. And so like EJ said, USF, you know what I mean? Yeah, they got the upset last year. And so the model's looking at that and going, oh shit, okay, well, yeah, it's a different team. Yeah, it knows what players are coming back, by the way. It looks at all those things. And that's why Florida Atlantic is, within 11 points here on our model, is because, like EJ said, they are the most experienced team. They're the only team in the country that's bringing back their quarterback, that's bringing back their entire coaching staff. This is a very experienced team that's going to be taking a step forward no matter how you look at it. And so once again, I mean, once we start getting into the flow of things, after Florida Atlantic, Campbell, after the Auburn game, the week 4, I think, going into the Ole Miss game is going to be the first, like, all right, model, tell us what you think, in my opinion, because now we have 2 games, and then we have that Power 4 game, or
Right. And so, and how we've scaled that is everything is based on preseason unknown stats right now. After the first game, it'll be based on 50% unknown stats, 50% of what your first game results were. And then after the second game, our model will start to just use the actual performance data. So by the 3rd week, the model will be caught up. Now, the issue with that will be everything will be weighted against your competition. And, some of these teams are playing cupcake games. So, you might not get a lot of points for that, but, we'll see, how things work out. But yeah, so this was interesting. This is the first pass at this. There's still some things that we got to fix, but, it's very revealing to see this, because here's the other thing, they're saying that we're going to win over under is 7 wins.
Yep.
So this says, I think it's 6 for us.
Well, 7 counting Campbell.
Okay, 7 counting. So this was like, we verified that, that's an accurate projection, independently of what Vegas is doing. So, there's that.
No, 100%. And look, Rob's not lying. Don't be surprised when a 10-point game in the first half against FAU. Once again, FAU is not a bad team. And Rob's right. Like, you got to realize this is a brand new organization with brand new players. And even though John Summerall, like Brian said, is doing a really, at Tulane, they were coming in and taking his players. You know what I mean? While that is true, and he had to rebuild every single year, you got to understand this is a whole new level, bro. You're in the SEC. You know what I'm saying? And obviously, it's Florida Atlantic. I understand that. But the game is getting way more complex. And on top of that, you have so many pieces you still got to figure out. Who the hell is your quarterback? How's Buster going to be? All these players got to get used to Buster's system. Brad White coming in, getting those defensive guys in line. You have all these new transfers coming in. Anytime, no matter who it is, even if you're Auburn, and you're bringing over all your players from USF, you still have to get acclimated to this new world, wearing these colors. You know what I mean? Whatever it is. And so it doesn't matter. You have a brand new team every single year, and you're gonna have to get acclimated to it all. And so I agree. I think that first, especially if we don't really have a quarterback going into that first game, don't expect FAU to be an easy, smooth sailing game. And it's kind of what we were talking about, EJ. It's not even really about points for me. It's about what do we look like, because we can put up 50 points against, or whatever it was, against Long Island, 52-7, whatever it was, and look like shit, which we did last year.
Yeah.
Or we can beat Florida Atlantic by 14 points or by 17 points and look very, very solid.
Well, and that's what people need to and then if you go to the next page, it'll break down the FAU. But here's the thing. You're exactly right. Like if you watch that Long Island game last year, we beat them 50 to whatever, nothing or whatever the score was. It was a struggle to get to it was not like we handed the ball off and it was seamless, well-oiled. We're demolishing them. They did take DJ Lagway out in the second half, so there's garbage time stats in there. But if you're going to be a team that is going to be 10-2, like what Brian is saying that we're going to be, you got to go into that FAU game and you have to wipe the floor with them. Like the variance between how efficient Florida is versus FAU relative to the talent profile has to be distinguished in the stats for a computer model to give you credit. And if it's not, and it ends up being 31-17 or some, whatever this model is saying it's going to be, then that's not going to be a good sign for Florida, I think, moving forward. So I think if we can beat this model's prediction and really, beat FAU really good, it depends on how we beat them. Because if it's like, and Logan's one of his thing is the luck factor that's factored into our model. So if FAU randomly fumbles the ball 4 times, we don't really get a lot of points for that, even though technically we should. So there's just some more stuff there. But the next page kind of shows you how our model goes into a little more depth into how it's picking some of these games relative to like the Vegas line and the ESPN FPI line. And we give you the actual stats. So our model gives you the predicted stats out of every game. And it gives you the death toll, which is 10,000 simulations that we run, and it takes the median of those. So, somebody's going to be wrong.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
100%, man. You take a look at this. I mean, it's on your screen right now, guys. The predicted stat sheet, literally gives all the literal predicted stats there for you. And you made I think it was Brian that's in the chat was talking about how, we have our boy, as the offensive line coach, and it's going to be a very well-coached group, and he's right. But you also got to understand, we're not going to know who the hell our offensive line is probably by that first week. Also, they're still mixing guys up, and that's we're learning that in camp. Now, are they going to have a group that they probably feel pretty confident they think is going to be the group? Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I don't know. We have guys that sound like they can play, 3 different positions, and so, don't be surprised if right here it says, FAUs look like they're projected to get almost 2.5 sacks. It's like, yeah, that's probably because our offensive line's still they're mixing guys up, they're mix matching, trying to get stuff ready, which is not uncommon in these first few games. Yeah, EJ, total is 50 points. Home field gives us 4.5 points. And yeah, starting quarterback for Florida, Trammell. Starting quarterback for FAU is Caden Velkamp. And talks about FAU's offense and defensive ranking. So yeah, EJ, you can see all the different stats, and that's based off of 10,000 simulations of this game. So pretty fun stuff there.
Yeah. And the ESPN FPI it looks like it's 11 and a half or 11 and a half.
So they're right there with us. So there you go. I mean, that kind of backs up our stuff there.
Vegas is the one that's 26, so
take your under.
and then the thing, but see, I think what happens is people see that Vegas number and they're like, yeah, we're great. We should beat them by that. But then here's the thing. It's like, have you ever taken a step back and why is that the predicted final score? Outside of the fact that Florida's Florida and FAU's FAU, because had we done that, going in the USF game last year, knowing that, yeah, we beat Long Island Ice Teas 50-0. They were a terrible team, by the way. I think they only won 2 games, and they were FCS. We struggled to like knock them off the line of scrimmage. It wasn't like we should have been up 21-0. You know how Tennessee came to the Swamp and beat us like a drum at the end of the year last year? It was like 28-0 or whatever the score was.
Yeah.
That's what we should have been doing to Long Island. Okay? And this model is saying we're not going to do that at FAU. I don't know. It could be completely, there's unknown factors of the Sumrall effect on our players, on our team, with our quarterback, with our defense. And I think with our defensive line being as low rated as it is according to our model, Brad Scott is going to have to incorporate a lot of the things that he was doing at Kentucky.
Brad White, yeah.
Because we can't really, we're not going to be able to get a lot of pressure with 3 or 4 guys based on what this model is saying relative to our schedule. What that means is we're playing against teams that have way more experienced offensive lines than our defensive line. And, because we lost a couple guys. What's a majigger? Brendan Bett is the only guy. Bet is the only guy that we pretty much have outside of Woods, who's not technically a line. We have the other guy that's injured all the time. He has like no stats.
McLeod also is in there. But once again though, he needs to just make a bigger impact. We have a lot of solid guys, right, EJ? And I think that's what you're saying. We got a lot of solid guys. We need impact guys though. We need these big guys in the interior that are going to make big things. That's why we got Kalu from Baylor, right? We need some of these guys to really make an impact on the inside, and that's what you were talking about. And hopefully we can make that happen.
And the model, just so everyone knows, we have a statistic on every position group. So for the defensive line, it's percentage of plays won, meaning if you're on the defensive tackle, what percent of plays did you not get pancaked on? Okay, like in actual FBS competition. And that's what this model is factoring in. So it's saying, well, the players that you have either no experience playing against top competition, or when they did, they got pancaked at the line of scrimmage. And I hate to say it, but the Texas A&M stat line is like not giving us, from last year, is not giving any of these guys any kudos, because they had 0 plays won in that game. 0, meaning Texas A&M snapped the ball and ran us off the field every single snap, which is like embarrassing, which is why our numbers are so low. So when we play games like that, we cannot let that happen. Our defense has to stand their ground or do something, which, hey, I think they're going to be, because last year we know Napier didn't have a clue what he was doing. I think Sumrall is definitely, we're going to win some plays this year. So I'm excited about that.
100%. And it's like what you're just talking about. Sumrall come in here and just have an impact on this entire team, which looks like he might be doing. But that's bias, right? That's something that's not measurable. And if it's not measurable, then we can't really throw it in the model. It just doesn't really make any sense.
Right.
And that's what messes up the analytic based model that we do have and that we do want to develop. But yeah, so that's the FAU game, right? And then you can go down to the Auburn game.
Do you want to show the matchup predictor and just go?
Yeah, let's do that.
Go that for the rest of the games, because it'll be kind of cool for everyone to see, kind of like how we built this thing, so that they don't think that we're just like making shit up.
Yeah. So right here on your screen is the FAU game is saying 30-20. Florida's going to win this game by 10 points. And that's with that 4.5 home field advantage. Yeah, so that's really, really fascinating. So now what's awesome about this, and EJ was talking about it, we might go public with this model eventually. So we'll keep you guys updated on how you can get access to it, some kind of subscription, whatever it is, as we continue to go down the way. So we're going to go and find Auburn right up here. There it is with Florida going to Auburn. Home field for Auburn. Auburn right here. Projected to win by 2 points, 25-23, EJ. The Chomp spread shows Auburn, a 2-point favorite. And it's saying they do win by the 2 points. And what's really cool, look at all these stats. They literally have all the stats right here for you to kind of take away. It talks about the interceptions and tackles for loss and all these things here. And look at this. I love the different things you can see here, EJ. The different results from the different simulations. The first 10. Look at this: Florida by 23, Florida by 14, Florida by 4. There's an overtime, and then you got, which was a tie, which is pretty funny. Then you got Auburn by 4, funny. Auburn by 7, Auburn by 12, and 18 and 28. So it's really, really fascinating to see, which makes sense. Games can go from one extreme to the other, and so that's kind of fascinating. But yeah, it says Auburn's going to be getting that too. And what's fascinating, once again, look at the home field. It accounts for 4.5 points, EJ. So in other words, if this is on a neutral site, which we can do, Florida wins by 2 points. If this is at Florida, I think, I don't want to do all the clicking, but I think it was Florida, we win like by 4 or something. And so, that home field advantage for Auburn is going to be big.
Yeah, and they get the elite home field advantage at Auburn at 4.5 points because their home field advantage has been significant. And how that home field advantage works is if you win a certain percentage of your games at home over the last, I think it's like 10 years or something like that, you get more points. So like Ohio State, Georgia, apparently Auburn gets the highest rating. We get the highest rating too. So it's really fascinating. So our model is 2.1. Auburn is favored. ESPN has it 2.2, which we're pretty accurate. We're pretty up there to ESPN. And out of the 10,000 simulations, I think it was Auburn 5.5 times, and then us the other 5.5 times. But the reality is their outlying wins had higher margins than our outlying wins. So like if the game goes south for Auburn, it's a 33-10 victory for Florida. If the game goes south for Florida, it was a 28-point victory for Auburn. So it was just those two margins that come together to kind of give this final predicted score. But at the end of the day, this can all completely change, and it will completely change after the first game because Auburn and Florida both play pretty good little warm-up games. Auburn plays Baylor, which has your favorite quarterback, Brian's favorite quarterback in the chat, DJ Lagway. I thought he was going to be great last year. He apparently was supposed to be really good, but then he didn't even throw any touchdowns against USF last year, who is basically Auburn this year, which is crazy to think about. But like Auburn is basically USF North this year. So he's going to get a chance to play against that same team his first game at Baylor. So that'll be an interesting game. Actually, is that game in Baylor? Let's look at the prediction.
That's the Chick-fil-A kickoff, I believe.
So okay, so let's do neutral and Auburn versus Baylor, and just see what that score is going to be.
Auburn 26, Baylor 22.
Oh, yeah. Okay, all right, okay.
So the Chomp spread is 4.5, 4 points, 4.2. But yeah, it's saying 26-22. If you go home field for Baylor, Baylor still loses by a point to 24-23. But yeah, since it's a neutral site, 26-22, which is pretty fascinating. And I mean, dude, the margin here is unbelievable. The highest margin for Auburn's them winning by 31 points, and the highest for Baylor is 22 points. So once again, that's something to take a look at.
Yeah, that factors in. All right.
100%.
Okay.
So it'll
47.
be
Okay.
it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. But let's go ahead and continue down here, EJ, with this next game. We're gonna have obviously get done with Auburn. Now we have Ole Miss, baby. Ole Miss is coming to the Swamp for a big time game. Ole Miss, though, coming off of a big game. They play LSU, right, the week before, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see real quick, actually. I believe they play LSU the week before, EJ. They come to the Swamp. So they're going to be beaten down a little bit.
Good.
And it's a big one
We
now.
hope LSU beats the hell out of them before they have to play us.
Damn straight. And that's going to be a great game. But the predictor still has Ole Miss winning, EJ. Still has Ole Miss winning by 5 points. The Chomp spread's 5. It's going to be 29-24. Yeah, man. A neutral site would be even worse for the Florida Gators. The Chomp has them pretty highly rated here. The highest margin here is Ole Miss by 32 points, which would be wild in the Swamp, and then Florida by 22 points, which would be pretty crazy. Just another fascinating one here, EJ. With Ole Miss actually kind of getting the nod. Yeah.
Was this so ESPN FPI has, I think it has Florida favored by 1. Is that what that means down there?
Oh, sorry, I went back to this. Where do you see that at? Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, ESPN FPI has them 1.
And then we have Ole Miss favored by 5. So
very interesting.
It's an interesting situation there. And that's including the 4.5 points we get from being at home. It's just too many games where Ole Miss is beating the hell out of us. I think they've got 40% of their simulations where they're winning by double digits in this game. And I can almost guarantee you, if I were to dive into the stats, it would, the number one factor for us is quarterback rating and defensive rating. So if you've got the best quarterback and you've got the best defense, you're going to win. The model's going to favor you. And our inability, so we don't even know who the quarterback is. This is why it's kind of not worth really predicting that far ahead, but it is. What we're doing now is what if we played tomorrow? What would the prediction be? We have an unknown quarterback, and our D line is very low rated. Not having a quarterback that can gunsling and go toe to toe with Ole Miss,
with Trinidad,
with Trinidad is going to screw you over when you don't have a quarterback that can gunsling back and forth with him, or a defense that can get after it and sack him every 5 seconds, because you're going to get chewed up. If you can't at least do time of possession, how would we beat Ole Miss if we were to play them tomorrow? We'd have to basically play keep away. That's the only way, because you have no clue how your quarterbacks are going to fare against a defense that's relatively high rated. I'd be interested to see where they rated Ole Miss's defense. I haven't looked since our last update. And then Trinidad Chambliss is the number 1 quarterback in the nation. So basically that's saying that we pretty much won't stop them. But it's interesting that they only have 29 points, though.
They have them 11th in the country defensively.
Okay, so you got the number 1 quarterback and a almost top 10 defense. So there's no way we're winning in that game. There's no way a model, at least, is going to predict us to win. Is what I'm saying. Just like last year or 2 years ago when we played them, there was probably no way our model was going to predict that we were going to win that, but we did at least beat LSU the game before, which boosted up our numbers a little bit. Or was LSU the second game?
I don't remember.
I thought we beat Ole Miss and then we came back and beat LSU. That's crazy to have that schedule, and we basically played a playoff schedule in the season. If you think about it, you're playing playoff caliber teams 5 weeks in a row, whereas these other programs don't do that. It's just not very, apples to apples. But hey, here's the model.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. You made a great point. You know, it's really where they have it ranked. Obviously, the model isn't like our defense, and that's why teams like Ole Miss are putting over 400 yards on us. Offensively. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that's why a lot of these games are going to go the way they're going to go. All right, next game we have with the Florida Gators is going to be Missouri. So we are traveling to Missouri, EJ, for this matchup. Always hate going to Missouri, dude. It's always absolute
I
hell.
hate Missouri. I
Uh,
hate their stadium.
and this season, and look at this, look at that, favored by 4 points, and says they're going to beat us 27-23, which honestly I could see happening. The issue with Missouri this season, EJ, is they have a really good running back room. They have Ahmad Hardy coming back, plus they just brought over that big time rusher. I think came from the FCS or a small like a group of 5 school. Either way, a monster back coming in. This backfield for Missouri, I think is maybe top 10 in the country, top 5 really. It's what Drink likes to do over there with them. And they also got some really good transfers that came in, EJ, on both sides of the ball. So keep an eye out for Missouri. They're going to be a team that's going to keep the ball away from you. They're going to be playing that keep away ball that you said that we got to play once we play Ole Miss, with kind of playing more of a time of possession type game. And yeah, I mean, once again, almost another 400 yards total offense against the CJ. The model absolutely hates. That's what's crazy. The model has us putting up a decent amount of yards, but just still just not living up to what the other team is doing. So that Missouri beating us here. It's gonna be a road game, EJ. Especially now. Here's the thing: if we start out 4-0, we're coming off a big Ole Miss win. That momentum's gonna be really, really hard to beat. But that gives Missouri even more, of a motivation. Now, if we're coming off of an Ole Miss loss, I could see us dropping a Missouri game too. You know what I mean? I could definitely see that. So yeah, obviously that's kind of, the model has us taking a loss here though, EJ. I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, Missouri's one of those weird teams. They don't get the 4.5 home field advantage. They do get 3.75, which is like the tier below that, for their home field advantage. I think having Austin Simmons, um, who's got a little bit more experience than either one of our guys. He was a highly rated transfer. And that's how we built our talent composite, everybody. It was based on your 2025 composite, which, it predicts you're not going to be too far different from that. And then 20% of it was your transfer portal class, and 20% of it was your recruiting class for this year. Just so that we can actually have a talent rating to give every team, because they haven't released it yet, and we like to root our talent composite based on 247, which is actually a composite anyway. And that hasn't been released. So when that gets released, maybe this will change. We don't know. But it's very interesting. And then also, Brian is talking about, well, John Summerall has won all this, won all that. When you match him up against Drinkowitz is weighted a lot more because he's won a lot more SEC games as a head coach. Now Summerall might come in and he's basically have to just coach some games to get some data in there for us to be able to see. The other thing with Missouri is that's a little tricky with them. They don't usually play a very difficult schedule. They play maybe like 1 or 2 tough games a year, and then everybody else is kind of like middle of the pack to poor, right? Like they're non-conference games. Like they'll play Kansas. Is Kansas really good? I don't know.
I think
Maybe.
I think this year they actually have a decently hard schedule though. But yes, you are right in the past. But let me see.
Yeah, in the past, their strength of schedule hasn't been that high.
Yeah.
And so what that means is, and this is something I didn't know about this, ESPN FPI has a rating system that they give you points for the amount of rest that you have in between games. And your rest is dependent on either it's a bye week or the level of competition that you played the week before. So if you played a weak competition the week before, ESPN FBI gives you more rest points and say that you're going to be a little bit more stronger for the previous game. I bring that up because Missouri, because they didn't play anybody, they don't really have a tough a schedule as Florida has the last 2 years. ESPN FPI says that they are actually fresher for every game and they should like be able to play harder and be healthier. And I don't know, maybe there's a correlation between our injuries the last 2 years and the strength of schedule. The data will probably do a correlation to that. I wouldn't say that. I just think it's piss poor like Billy Napier, but maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. And once again, this model is gonna start to understand itself as the year continues to go on. It's so hard to predict all this stuff. It really is, and that's kind of the point that we're trying to nail down. All right.
Oh yeah, and I like what Rob said about yeah, and this is exactly right. Like Napier Napier and Summerall had basically identical records before they started. Um yeah, it's absolutely correct. And Signetti, and that's the other thing. And we'll have this for next week. We ran another analysis that will strengthen our model on what are the predictive metrics in the preseason that predict your success when you weren't expected to do good. Because everyone wants to know like what was the formula about Indiana. Um Maybe Signetti is just excellence in everything he does. And if you ever, I actually met Fernando Mendoza. He was at a conference. Just able to shake his hand. Um, that guy's incredible. Like, I don't know if Signetti just uh instills just an excellence mindset, but if you have a person like that on your team, it was almost like Tim Tebow vibes. Like Tim Tebow is another player who's like, if I'm going to do something, I want to be the very best at it. And the people around me also need to be the very best at it, or they're not going to be playing with me. And so that's the vibe you get from Mendoza. And it's kind of like Signetti has that same mindset. So when you have an elite quarterback with an elite mindset, and then you look at our team. What were we doing last year? The stories came out about Lagway. I didn't feel part of the team. The guys didn't want to have lunch with me. It's kind of like, well, no wonder you went out there and threw 5 interceptions. Like, what do you think's going to happen? So we can't be lollygagging around, head down on the sideline and thinking we're going to go 10-2. We have to have somebody in there that's a leader. Okay, that's going to push the team. That's going to lead by example. And Gunnar Stockton at Georgia, I think, is another great example. Is he the best overall quarterback player? No, but he's a good leader. And the guy can freaking make plays when they break down. Okay. And will our guys be able to do that? I don't know. The computer thinks not because they don't have anything to base it off of. So I guess we'll see. But that was just an observation that I had about, thinking about our quarterback situation and excellence and how Summerall is going to have to, have that mindset for us to really be good. And if he really has that mindset, we'll know from the quarterback situation, because if Philo comes out and struggles against FAU and you have another guy that you need to give a shot, let's see what happens.
100%. On screen right now, we have South Carolina and Florida. South Carolina, says they're going to be losing by 2 points. Florida favored by 2 points here, and they have this winning 26-24 because of the home field. Take away home field, EJ, on a neutral site, definitely doesn't go our way. South Carolina winning by 2 points. So yeah, no. I mean, this should be another really, really fun game. The model's very, very high on South Carolina and their offense this year and their defense as well. I think that's pretty interesting. They have them number 24, EJ, on the index. I think that's pretty fascinating. I don't really understand where they got that from, where it's going with it. But once again, we don't have anything to pull from. So we're going to keep, kind of going back to that. I think this model is going to be phenomenal a few games in. I'm really, really excited for it. And you never know. Maybe South Carolina might be dirty this year. Maybe we come back and we're like, holy shit, this model's insane. Oh, my God. So, yeah, we'll see, man. But yeah, no, overall, though, just, kind of goes back to what we were talking about. It's really interesting too, EJ, and we'll just touch on this before, and then we'll get off of this. But a lot of the things that I'm seeing on a lot of these games is Florida not scoring any points really at all when they lose. I don't know if you've noticed that or not. But for example, the home field, you go down to the bottom, South Carolina winning by 24, we're only scoring 10, 13, 14 points. While whenever the other team, we win and we beat the other team's still scoring 20 points, 30 points, whatever it is, and we're just outscoring them. So obviously the model does not like our offense at all. Maybe it's because of the quarterback situation, something to take a look at. If the quarterback situation is better and we're able to move the ball down the field, the model's going to look at that, and I guarantee the model's going to go from us winning 7-5 or 7 games to probably winning 9 or 10. So keep that in mind as we're going forward with all these coin flip games. It doesn't trust the offense, and rightfully so. We know nothing about the quarterbacks. We know nothing about the offensive line. We don't know what's happening. We have no idea what's happening. And yeah, we have great coaches to rely on, but that's not measurable. And the model can only look at what's measurable. And that's kind of the point.
Yeah, I completely agree. And and like I said, we built this with no Gator glasses on. Like I'm definitely old enough, but Logan's definitely but the interesting thing I think about you, Logan, is your glory years what were your glory years? Like 2016?
For what?
2017? In terms of like when you were a fan and like
we were good. 2020 is the best year I've ever seen.
Okay, yeah. See, exactly. So I feel like that's why both of us are rooted, because it's like I lived through the glory years of 2006, 2008, and then basketball was winning back to back. And then your glory years are like, we had no defense, but we had a great offense, and then we threw the damn shoe.
Yeah.
So, we're trying here to make us understand where we are relative to the field. And I think this model really is going to be, once we get refined, we get some good data. It at least is going to tell us where we need to, where the team needs to focus on.
100%, man. I'm really, really excited for it. And this is kind of what this was, kind of a preview to the model, show you guys what we're working on. All right, EJ, I think that's the first, 6 games right there that we just kind of went through. I didn't know, do you want to show the I know we got to get going here soon, but we could just kind of show the top 25 and what it made.
Oh, yeah, that's going to definitely, if you go to the SPI rankings, it gives you the
here it is. Yeah.
And this will change. This will change, obviously, but it gives us the SEC first, and then it'll give us the national rankings.
Yeah, I'm looking at the national right now. We looked at the SEC a little bit earlier.
Okay.
So yeah, this is the national. So we got Ohio State at 1, Notre Dame at 2, Texas at 3, Texas A&M at 4, Oregon at 5. I understand all those, personally. I think all those are pretty solid. I understand it. It makes sense. Then you got Ole Miss at 6, Miami at 7, Georgia at 8, Indiana at 9, Texas Tech at 10. The only one I think
Texas Tech at 10. That's
pretty fascinating, especially with the quarterback situation. But they're very, very talented. Have a lot of great, returning production. Then you go into Michigan at 11, first year. Head coach over there, pretty fascinating. USC at 12 makes sense. Alabama 13, it's Alabama. Oklahoma at 14, I'm high on them. BYU 15, yep. Penn State 16, they have an easy-ass schedule this year. That makes sense. Utah 17, SMU 18, Iowa 19, 20 Tennessee, 21 Washington, 22 TCU, 23 Louisville, 24 South Carolina, with 25 Clemson. Now you're probably wondering, two questions. Number one, where the hell is Florida? Number two, where the hell is LSU? Let's go and talk about it. So you scroll down a little bit. LSU sitting here at number 30 in the country, with Florida sitting down here at number 36. Now, it's something that we kind of talked about in the past, DJ. Our model, and we got to work on it a little bit more and really account for what, a lot of these coaches these first year coaches have done in the past against, certain, levels of production and stuff like that. So we're going to implement that in the model, which is probably why LSU's low. Usually LSU, I'm assuming, would probably be low teens, around maybe between Oklahoma, Alabama, or, kind of around there. USC, Michigan, maybe between those at, the number 11 seed or 12 seed. But I don't think it really sees the Lane Kiffin coming over. It does take into account all of the transfers, though, which is pretty fascinating. And Florida all the way down at 36, like I said, really just has to do with the fact that it has our offense at 33 and defense at 45. So that's kind of what's holding us back a little bit there. Also, our strength of schedule is absolute hell. It also kind of takes that into account. LSU having the 8th strength of schedule in the country definitely pushes them down a little bit. But yeah, so pretty fascinating, EJ. Like I said, I don't really mind a lot of what's going on here. Texas A&M a little high for me. I dropped them a little bit. Notre Dame having the 46th strength of schedule is wild. But yeah, Texas Tech a little high for me once again because of the quarterback situation. But all the other ones I think make sense.
Yeah, and so what this rating, just so everyone, for LSU in particular, what it's not taking into consideration is the effect that Lane Kiffin will have on LSU. Now, it takes into consideration his experience as an FBS head coach, but what's revealing is everyone will think in their head, oh, Lane Kiffin is going to go out there and dominate at LSU, which we all think he will. He's a really great coach. But if you ask the model to model, Lane Kiffin's going to kill it at LSU, right? He's going to be the rock star. It's going to say, yes, let me look at Lane Kiffin's record against ranked teams. Then what it's going to do is going to say his record is just as good as freaking the Tennessee coach, if not worse. So he did beat Georgia that one year. But if you're asking a computer to give you a rating versus, and who else did he lose to a couple years ago when he had an elite team? He lost to Billy Napier, which is like, the model takes that into consideration. It says you lost to the worst coach of the last 20 years. So, and then it's like, here's Lane Kiffin's resume, and here's what that means. So everything that everyone knows about what Lane Kiffin is going to do at LSU is all subjective, because right now, the model just puts in what his record was at Ole Miss and FBS. He coached at Tennessee for a season. He coached at USC for a season. And the other thing is, exactly, you hit it on the head, was their so they actually have the 22nd defense and the 42nd offense. They do have that really good quarterback that they're bringing in, so that gives them a little bit more points than us, but they're not getting the Lane Kiffin boost that I think comes natural to a lot of people, thinking that, they should be a top 5 team because they got Lane Kiffin. Well, when the computer looks at Lane Kiffin's record against great teams, it's good, but it's no different than like Josh Heupel at Tennessee. Conversely, these other teams, I think, like Texas and Texas A&M, are coming off really great seasons with great transfer portal rankings, and also championship pedigree. I think Texas made it to did Texas make it to the SEC championship game last year? Because you get points for that.
No, because they lost against Texas A&M, and that's what boosted Texas A&M. I don't think they made the SEC championship.
No, I think Texas beat Texas A&M last year, right?
No, that's why Texas A&M made the playoff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was the big game. It was between them two, and it was
Oh.
like whoever wins goes to the playoff. And they're like, oh shit. I think that's what it was,
Wait,
right? Maybe I'm tripping.
wait, maybe I'm messing up the years because I know that. Um, no, I think it was Texas versus Georgia, wasn't it? Yeah, that's why some of these conference championship games are like meaningless because it's like we can't even remember who was in the
Oh
freaking game.
yeah, no, you're right. Texas did beat Texas A&M, and then it was I think it was Texas. You're so right. You're so right. It was Texas Georgia.
Okay, all right.
Georgia
So
destroyed. That's why people were like, "What?" Yeah, the SEC championship made no fucking sense because then they got kicked out of the. Yeah,
okay, yeah. So that's the thing. So Texas A&M, it's kind of depressing because you're 11-0. You go 11-0, then you lose to Texas, and then your whole season goes down the tubes because you lost that one game. But anyway, um, with Texas, you get some points. Their head coach gets some points for a championship appearance. You know, um, I'm interested to see kind of like and Miami's at number 7 because of their pedigree. Ole Miss, it's interesting. Their coach has no head coaching experience, but they're at number 6. Oregon and Texas A&M are up there from talent alone. Same with Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's strength of schedule is very low. So the predictive outcome of the season will be they should be in the playoff, or maybe they'll sit out like they did last year. And then Ohio State is always going to be up there. I mean, every stat line is like Ohio State is going to win everything. So, it's an interesting situation, but they also have a number 7 strength of schedule. Also, I got to say this, the SEC is losing ground, folks, in these rankings. I haven't we don't have it published, but we're also going to add another dimension to this of conference power ratings. Once we figure out the model to do that so everyone can see. But the Big Ten has now surpassed the SEC in the preliminary run. So be that as it may, take that for whatever. I know a lot of Gator or SEC people are like, that's not true. I'm like, well, unfortunately it is from the computer standpoint, because they're saying that a win in the Big Ten is more predictive of a national championship than a win in the SEC is basically what the computer's saying. So take that whatever you want to say. So like you look at but then you look at it and you say, okay, well, the Big Ten has won 3 straight national championships with 3 completely different teams. It's not like the SEC where it's like it's only Alabama or only Georgia. LSU did win it that one year. Okay, randomly. But when you win the national championship, people, in the playoff era where it's now equitable across the board, and you do it with 3 different teams. Oh, and by the way, it's a blowouts all of the games. Ohio State creamed everyone. Indiana creamed everyone, except they got to Miami, gave them a little something to think about. Why? Because they had a D line, which we rank really high. Then who wanted that? Michigan kind of like stumbled their way. They almost lost to Alabama, but then they creamed Washington. So the Big Ten is now higher ranked than us. So we got to figure that out. Okay, why the hell is the Big Ten better than us? Sankey. Is he factoring that into the NIL situation? So sorry, that was a rant.
no,
But I'm pissed at
yeah,
that situation.
no, I agree. I agree, man. I mean, a lot of it had to do with the them bringing in the new 4 teams. You know what I mean? They took apart
Oh
the
yeah.
the Pac-12.
Oh yeah, that had a
and
lot to do with it. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
You bring over what you bring over USC and Washington and whoever else, and when you do that, yeah, obviously it's gonna help out your case a little bit. But yeah, I agree. And they brought up Tulane. That's a great point. I don't know why the hell Tulane's at 27. Once again, I think a lot of it I don't there's nothing to go off of. And so, it's tough. It's very interesting. But
Oh,
I
oh,
am very curious to ask the model why the hell Tulane's at 27.
uh, I can do that.
Yeah,
But let me tell you what they're saying about LSU. They're saying, um, FPI has LSU at ninth and Florida at 18th, which, fans look at that and say, yeah, we're top 20. But the gap, our model is different because we are asking our model different questions than what FPI is. Our preseason numbers are built on what happened on the field when you played games. Okay. Um, Using our own like adjusted ratings for the last 3 seasons and the most recently played games being the heaviest rated for those players. Whereas FPI is leaning on um, the roster you assembled, which is very subjective. Like you don't know how certain players are going to respond in completely different systems, in completely different styles of play, inverted onto different rosters. So that's one thing. And the other thing is LSU was middle of the pack in 2025. So in 2025 was heavily weighted. They weren't really that great. When they played us, the computer, our model says we should actually won the game, but it was because of the 5 interceptions. First of all, if you throw 5 interceptions on the road against a top 10 team, you should get beat by 40 points. Okay. The game should be over within as soon as the kickoff happens, which, if it were Indiana that we were playing, oh, it would have been 42-0. Like when we were playing Texas 2 years ago with Make a Wish Kid at quarterback. Okay. So LSU wasn't really that great last year. So that's why the model has them low. And the same thing with us. We only won 4 games last year. Now we did get some points because we were close in some of those games. Um, but while you're talking, I'll come back with the Tulane answer.
yeah, no, I agree.
I
I
had to
mean,
look that up.
Brian said the Big Ten's not better than the SEC. SEC is deeper, puts out the most NFL players. Simply winning the Natty does not make your conference the best. Clemson won the titles in the ACC, still trash overall. Yeah, but our point is though that it's been 3 different teams winning the national championship, right, from the same conference, and you got to look at that and go, okay, that's something to definitely take note of. But I do agree though, Brian. I think when it comes to how deep the conference is, the SEC is a lot deeper from top to actual bottom. I mean, think about it. You got Georgia, Alabama, you got Ole Miss, right? You have Texas, and you can go on and on. And so, yeah, I mean, it's
See, I think see here's where I
Oklahoma
have to
now is up there as well.
well see
Tennessee,
here's where I have to step in and you know it's wishful thinking to say that. The SEC is better. Then why aren't we beating Ohio State, Indiana, and Michigan when we go on the field and play those teams in the playoffs when we have a chance? Now, we used to, like 2022, when Georgia lined up and played Michigan, it was no competition in that playoff game. It was Georgia was clearly the better team. But guess what happened last year? Indiana freaking ran through everybody like freaking wet paper bag. Okay. And we lost the USF. That's what happened last year. The other thing was Ohio State. If you put Ohio State in the SEC, what you're implying is they would have a fundamentally different record than if they were playing in the Big Ten, which I think that may be true by 1 or 2 games because they probably will be matched up against a little bit more difficult stretch of games. But if you're going to tell me playing against Michigan, Indiana, Oregon, Washington, Penn State are different from a computer standpoint than playing against Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Alabama, and who else? Who the LSU?
yeah,
It's the computer's not going to say it's that much different. And then you also can't tell a computer the make the SEC better because I think so. No, it's going to say, did the SEC make it to the Final Four last year and actually do anything when they got there, or did they get creamed? Because when Tennessee went to go play Ohio State that year, 2 years ago, that's factored into these rankings because we did the last 3 years. They got obliterated. It was like not even, I had to turn off the TV because I was rooting for the SEC. So, okay, Tulane. Their defense, according to our model, is 17th in the nation, which is insane.
Interesting.
FPI says they're 56, so it's not like it's totally off.
It's not great, but yeah, I mean, but once again though, it's also taking into account the past, however so many years,
The Summerall years, right?
Not even
right.
Summerall. If it's 3, it's what's his name too, Fitz, Willie Fitz that was
yeah.
there before.
Yeah.
And so those are the past 2 coaches. Now their new coach isn't the best, right? He's a Southern Miss guy that they brought in. But at the same time, you got to take that into account over the span of 2, regimes, or coaching regimes. You have a lot of success there. Literally the past 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. I had the stat right here somewhere, and it just disappeared on me. Either way, they're really solid, and they've been very successful. So I think that's what it's based off of. It's that model is trash. We'll see. You can't, once again, so it's going back to what we're talking about. This is more of a preview for the model, right? So it wasn't this is the defined model. It's a very early version of the model, right? We literally just put it together. And on top of that, it's based off of previous seasons ranked with no bias. We talked about it earlier. ESPN, your favorite people that you listen to on college football, they implement bias into their models 100%. It's for engagement. It's for whatever. And so you got to understand that. Our model, based on the past 3 seasons, it ran all the games, was more accurate than ESPN's model was more accurate than your favorite model that you see online was. So you got to think about that going forward. And it's going to be wrong about some of these teams. You can cherry pick the Tulane, you can cherry pick the LSU being low, whatever. But 72, whatever it was, 69, 70% of the time, it is going to be correct. And that is something to think about as we continue on throughout this season. So we got a lot of great stuff going on, though. EJ, we do have to go here in a second, though. And anything else you want to touch on before we get out of here?
No, and it's just kind of like we weren't happy with the model either. But, here's the thing. Come up with your own model. And that's my test because I actually teach statistics. The reality is you have to predict based on actual performance. And what you're looking at when you look at ESPN FPI, that's not what that's giving you. It's giving you who has the biggest fan base. Ohio State. Okay. Texas. Okay. Florida. Okay. We got to get these Ghost fans engaged by giving them some extra points. But then when you actually are asked to do the assignment of going back and drawing upon what the players on your roster actually achieved relative to competition that is equal or better, that's what it came up with. So we can sit there and say, now, hey, maybe the model will be completely wrong as we go through the season. It'll get a lot better because it's based on hypothetical data right now in the preseason as opposed to actual games played in 2026, which I'm very confident that this models will be really, really good when games start playing. But that's the issue is we don't have we don't have any games to base it off of. It's all subjective. Well, I think Lane Kiffin's a great coach. Okay, who did he actually beat at Ole Miss? Did he win the SEC? Has he ever won a conference championship as a head coach? Like, these are the things that the model will ask you or will find out, and it will not rate them based on that. So, then the other thing is, what if we did this model last year? It would be so fascinating because I think it would have shown us that the USF game was going to be a lot more closer than what we all felt. And then, so what's worse? Like a model that tells you we're going to beat FAU by 30 and then they end up beating us, you know? Because that's basically what Vegas told you guys. And I don't see anyone putting up their Vegas model as trash, because it literally told us we were supposed to beat them by, I think it was 19 points, and they ended up beating us. So, you know, the percent of times that you're accurate, I think, is most important. But then also, when you think about like the Big Ten, because I think Brian talked about, well, if they had to play these teams, well, yeah, if you can also say, well, if Ohio State had to play Mississippi State, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, what would their record be, Brian? Exactly. It would be 7-0, and it would be blowouts in every game. So you can't really cherry pick the opponents. You have to look at the totality of the conference. How many elite teams do you have? How many elite teams do we have? And then we're playing the games, and then who's going to end out winning? I do think the Big Ten has favoritism in terms of geography and uh, how they do the schedules, because the SEC will front load a lot of power teams playing each other and beat each other up, and we're out of gas by the time the season ends. Whereas Ohio State, you only have to play, it's like sporadic. You play like one good team, three bad teams, one good team, four bad teams. Then you play Michigan at the end of the year, and that's it. So maybe if we did that for our elite teams, maybe we would, have a little bit better of a chance. I don't know. But it's interesting. I'm excited to see where this goes. Um, and Logan will try to figure out how to open up the model for people to play around with and get upset with. But here's the funny thing: what if we're right? That's the biggest question of the day.
Exactly. No, I'm very excited, man. We'll definitely keep you guys updated on it, and this model is gonna be changing week to week until the season starts, and especially
Right.
week to week once we start putting more of the information into it and the new data. The more data points, the more accurate the computer is gonna be. Um, you said you can't base the model, but you can't make the model based on the previous year's metrics. Too much changes. You should base it on the spring. Well, that's what we did. We based it off of the rosters that they have currently, based on the portal, like EJ was talking about, and the recruits and everybody that was coming in. But we also based it off of previous years, because you got to base it on some kind of metrics.
Well, it's not. It's based off of the player's performance in game, so it's actually more granular than that. So it's how did every single one of your players perform against elite competition? That's what our model is based off of. The spring is not a real game, so the computer has no data to base it off of. So, like, and then they don't even release the stats. Like, some teams randomly release the stats. Then it's like, do you trust it? Because in the spring games, the coach will say, don't do a pass rush. So just let the quarterback throw the ball. Okay, we can't count that.
I thought he meant roster wise. I don't know what if he meant the spring game. Then yeah, I agree. Then that doesn't make any sense.
Well. The roster composite, the talent composite for 247 isn't out yet. And I think it'll be released maybe like a week before the season starts. And so then we'll have like what the talent actually should be. We have old composite data for the talent, and so we had to kind of like jerry rig our talent based on player performance. So when we get closer to the season, it'll be a lot more accurate. So I'll be happy to see what that looks like.
100%. Get these last questions out, and then we'll get out of here. Kenny said, "What up, fellas? Any word on scrimmage yesterday? Nothing crazy. We know that London. There's literally no notes. It's starting tomorrow on Monday. Whenever you guys are seeing this, so that'll be the 17th of August. John Summerall is going to go up on a podium, do the press conference, and you'll get all the answers there. All we know is London Montgomery just hurdled the hell out of a guy, number 9 on defense. We also know that Cormani McClain got an interception. He had the ball in his hands. And we know that some quarterback then threw an interception. And there was a couple of turnovers apparently in this. So we're going to figure out.
Philo.
The rumors that I've heard, one quarterback had 3 turnovers on downs or 3 turnovers in total. Other quarterback threw 2 touchdowns. I'm not going to say which is which. Something I don't want to, I'm not going to give any false information because we don't really know. That's just kind
Yeah,
of
we
what
don't
the rules
know.
are right
Yeah.
now.
And then Dallas Wilson was like precautionary, whatever that means. So maybe he's fully 100% and we just don't want him to play. Or maybe he was hurt a little bit and they limited him. We don't know what that means. We just know he was precautionary.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%. Top to bottom, there are better teams in the SEC and more NFL players. Because the SEC was definitely the better, I would say better conference maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Past couple years, I think it's a little bit different. I mean the roster-wise, because that's what else did we fall? Roster-wise, yeah. No, we did. We did base it off of that. 100%, Brown. We did base it off of the roster for sure. It's not just based off previous years. We wouldn't do that. It would make no sense for the model. That's what I'm saying. We gave the metrics earlier. The metrics are very analytical, and there's 20 at least different metrics that we have. We might actually even do an Instagram post for you guys or something where you can go and you can read it and look at all the different things that we have in this model. You could use blue chips ratio. That's out already. We could use blue chip ratio. I mean, you're still missing out on top to bottom though. But yeah, I see your point. Buster will pick the right quarterback. We'll see. I think it's gonna be a little biased, but we'll see what happens. All right, well, EJ, I think that's gonna be it, right? Nothing else to really touch on. I think it's gonna be it for today's stream.
Yeah, that is it for today. We're excited. Maybe we'll see you guys next week.
Oh, yeah, 100%, man. We got a lot of stuff to dive into. Really, really excited. We're going to talk more of the model next week, all kinds of stuff. We love you guys. Whatever you guys want us to talk about, we will talk about. We now have scrimmages, EJ, every single Saturday until the game. So we got a lot of fun stuff, baby. I'm really hyped. Thank you guys so much for all watching. We got 9 people in here right now. Hit that like button, man. We got 6 likes. The other 3, I see you guys out there. Make sure you guys hit that like button for us. Subscribe if you are new. Appreciate Brian, Rob, Kenny, everybody that came in here. We really do appreciate y'all. I love you guys. EJ, anything last words before we get out of here?
Peace.
Go Gators, baby.